Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my college football playoff part 2 or round 2 predictions. Got to get this out within the next 3 hours because we've got a game on today. Unfortunately, the least interesting game, but still, college football playoff game is a college football playoff game. But without saying too much, like and subscribe, help, comment, always helps. Let's get straight into this thing and the disappointing game. Boise State versus Penn State. This is only interesting for Penn State or Boise State fans, really. Or I guess whoever would play the winner of this. I think that's on the Notre Dame-Georgia bracket. So I guess maybe Georgia Notre Dame fans are watching this as well. But everybody else, I don't know if really anybody cares. Ashton Jeanty and this Boise State team are going up against a really solid Penn State team. I know this Penn State team lost to Ohio State and to Oregon, but you got to give them credit for hanging in there very well with those teams. And this team has the potential to actually go all the way, believe it or not. I mean, they handled I wouldn't say like a really explosive or super good SMU team, but definitely a talented and sneaky good SMU team. But I would put the main reason they lost was because of the big lights in the Penn State Stadium. Like, there is no way a very young team like that, first year in Power 4, was going to go win at Penn State in the college football playoff. It was a miracle they made it. But nonetheless, Penn State's defense, dude, they get pick sixes, they get stops, and they get turnovers. Boise State is just going up against a defense they have not seen. And I think Ashton Jeanty is going to get the door slammed shut in his face. He might close in on 100 yards, but this offense for Boise State has been so really reliant on him. I do think this Boise State team can throw the ball when they need to, and they have a talented quarterback, but ultimately, the majority of this offensive output from this team has been from Ashton Jeanty. There's no question about that. And this Penn State team is just better, in my opinion. If Boise State manages to run the ball all over this Penn State team, I would be extremely worried for any team that has to play this Boise State team. Because if Ashton Jeanty can run against a team like this, he can run against pretty much anybody, because this is a top-tier defense. But I don't think he will. I'm anticipating that he won't do so. And I think Penn State has another domination on the way. I live in Arizona, of course, and the Fiesta Bowl is here. As an ASU fan, that's pretty obvious. But I've seen a lot of Boise State fans here. I haven't really seen many Penn State fans. I could be just on the wrong side of town, but I see a lot of Boise State fans. This is their bowl. They're notorious for this bowl. So maybe they could put something together, but I'm anticipating that they won't. Penn State to the next round. And the game we have all been waiting for. And to be honest, they announced, I think his name, Isaiah Bond. I know who the dude is. He's a pretty damn good receiver. Didn't play in the Clemson game. Didn't know that. Is returning. That is super unfortunate to hear. He could still be playing on an injury, and maybe he'll have to sit out at some point, or maybe he's trying to play and he just won't be able to. Let's hope. But an addition like that makes it all the more difficult. And really, I don't think ASU's offense is going to struggle very much against this defense. This is a top-tier defense, but this is also a top-tier ASU offense. A very underrated ASU offense, if you will. Sam Leavitt is an explosive and a scary good quarterback, but then, of course, he got Cam Scatterby. And even though Jordan Tyson is out and he was the best receiver, the other receivers damn sure showed up, and they will show up. Xavier Guillory, Melquan Stovall, they are damn good receivers. Give them some credit. I don't think ASU's offense will have, I wouldn't say like an easy time. Don't get me wrong here, but I think they will be able to score points. Ultimately, this game will come down to how ASU's defense will perform against the Texas offense, because Quinn Ewers has struggled a lot this year. Arch Manning could take the throne if the game is going bad, or he could just run the ball. You never know. But ASU, their defense has got to show up against Texas if they want to stop this team, if they want to stop this football team. And Quinn Ewers has been inconsistent. With that being said, I think I'm confident in taking the Sun Devils by 1,000,000 points. No question, on to the next game. No, but for realsies, I do actually think ASU can win this game. The line being like 13 for Texas is rude. I do think this ASU team has a lot of talent. If they get fired up early, I think they can get some shit going. They can get some shit moving. I think ASU, most importantly, they have to open up the game with a defensive stop. Because if ASU can get the ball in their hands of offense, they get the opportunity to push the momentum in their favor. ASU has done very, very, very good of shutting teams out in the first half of football games. ASU got up 21-0 on Kansas State. They got up 21-0 on BYU. And I say shutting out, not necessarily holding them to 0, but just dominating the first half, even against Iowa State. They dominated both quarters, but the first half, it was close, and then they closed the first half out by getting up 24-10. ASU has done very good. They've done very good handling teams in large majority of the game, these quarters and these stretches where they stop teams. If they can perform that against Texas, they can win this football game. If they can't get the distance against Texas, Texas will make this football team pay. But I do think ASU as the underdog, Cam Scatterby robbed of a Heisman, at least not a Heisman, but a Heisman appearance as a Heisman candidate. I mean, truly was robbed. I think it should have been Ashton GT, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, and Cam Scatterby. Sorry, Dylan Gabriel, but you're not even the highest-rated quarterback in the playoffs right now. I do think ASU can win this football game, and it's only right of me to finally take my football team to win a goddamn football game this season. I have literally picked against ASU. Like, ASU is my football team. I know the most about this football team, and yet my record on predicting this team is probably negative this year. It's probably negative. I think I picked them against Utah. I picked them against BYU, but I didn't pick them against Kansas State. I barely picked them against U of A, if you even call that a pick. And I didn't pick them in the Big 12 championship. I got to pick them. And I'm actually confident. I'm excited for this game. I do think ASU actually stands more of a chance than people give them. And there's been a lot of ASU fans spotted in airports getting ready to go to Atlanta. My next-door neighbors are going to Atlanta. I would love to, but I have work, unfortunately. But I think ASU can win this game. It won't be pretty. And if ASU makes mistakes, that's also a key point. Let me talk about this. ASU has been very limited in the turnover game this year. Their worst performance in the turnover margin was their only loss with Sam Leavitt. It was their only loss, and it came against Texas Tech. That was their worst turnover performance, and it cost them big time. They threw one interception, but they failed 3 of their 3 fourth down conversions. You basically gave them the ball 4 times. 4 times. Other than that, I mean, ASU has remained very sound in the turnover game. They had 1 turnover and interception against Texas State, which ironically, that was one of the closer games this season. Against Kansas, again, they had 2 turnovers in this game, a fumble and an interception. That ended up being one of the closer games. They had a turnover against Utah, an interception. We're not counting the Cincinnati game because Sam Leavitt was not in that game. If Sam Leavitt gets hurt, call it wraps, pack it up, see you later. I don't have any faith in our backup. Sorry, not sorry. There wasn't any turnovers against UCF, but you could thank Cam Scatterby for being hurt in that game. There was a fumble against Kansas State, which ignited a resurgence. I think there was a turnover against no, there wasn't a turnover against U of A. And there was no turnovers against Iowa State except for 4th down and shit time. This team has remained super sound in the turnover game. I think the problem, what will lead to turnovers, is simply just fumbles or dropped passes, maybe even a tip pass, if you will. One of Sam Leavitt's only actual interceptions this year was a tipped interception that I can remember. That's really one of the only interceptions that I can remember that was actually probably if even on him. A lot of his interceptions thrown were like stripped, like the pressure got to him, which you could put the blame on him a little bit for that, or just hits the receiver in the hands and just goes through, gets tipped up and picked off. Sam has remained super sound in the interception game unless they get a hand on the ball and it flails up and they pick it off. The only way I think ASU would turn the ball over like considerably would be fumbles. That's it. We have to make sure we hold on to the ball. But Texas, on the other hand, I do think Quinn Ewers, he makes a lot of mistakes if you get the pressure on him. And I think that's a key to this game, is getting pressure on Quinn Ewers. He can deliver the ball quickly, but he can only do it so much. Eventually, the defense will stop. And if you keep getting pressure on the quarterback, he's going to make mistakes. Even sacks will take those. He's going to make mistakes. He has all season. So I think if ASU does everything right, and I do think they might, I think they can win this game. Ohio State versus Oregon. Ohio State lost to Michigan, but look at Michigan right now. No spoilers for the review, but they just lost to Michigan as well. I mean, Michigan is starting to catch fire. They're starting to leave this season off on a great note. They beat their rivals, and then they beat Alabama. And I think Ohio State did get a huge win over Tennessee. However, I just think the SEC right now is not as good as we think. I think Georgia and Texas are just on another level, except now that Georgia has lost Carson Beck and they have this backup, I'm not sure I'm taking much faith in them anymore. But I do think the only two teams that were really standout teams for me in the SEC this year were Texas and Georgia. And it's easy to get caught up in the commotion of Texas A&M and whatnot, but even right now, the only team that is relatively impressing me is LSU. I guess right now they're up 21-7 on Baylor, which is actually pretty impressive to me because Baylor has been very solid finishing out this season. But even right now, South Carolina is struggling with Illinois. That would not be a good loss that would be a terrible loss for the SEC, but of course there's still plenty of time left in those games. The SEC outside of Texas and Georgia has not looked very pretty. It really hasn't. Tennessee, as the third SEC team in, got absolutely embarrassed. Everybody wants to talk about how the ACC shouldn't have had two teams, but then Alabama loses to Michigan. I don't think the SEC's got it. But I don't remember why I was talking about the SEC. I don't remember why I was going to tie it in. But that's Ohio State's. That's Ohio State's resurgence win, which has put all this faith back into Ohio State. And they have another thing coming for them in Oregon. I predicted that Oregon would win earlier on in the season, 33-30. And I'm going to predict it again. This Oregon team's defense has not been there. It has not showed up. It's not very good. You can count on points. You can count on a lot of points scored in this game. However, Oregon's offense is on another level. And I think Oregon can win this game. Ohio State, this is the same thing we saw last season with Washington and Oregon. And Oregon was the team that was the victim of this. Washington played Oregon in Washington's home stadium, and Oregon should have won that football game, but they lost. All throughout the season, they said they were going to re-meet in the Pac-12 championship, and Oregon was going to beat Washington. And what did Washington do? What did they do? They won. They won by 3 points again. Ohio State, Oregon wasn't a 3-point game, but I'll take a 3-point game. I think Oregon is still going to prevail. They're going to learn from their mistakes that they made in the Ohio State game that made it close, and they're going to beat this Ohio State team, in my opinion. And the final game, Georgia versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame is extremely solid. Georgia's run defense has been very shut down this year, so if Jeremiah Love can't move the ball, there's going to be some problems. But you get the lovely addition of Riley Leonard. He can move his legs as well as he hasn't been the best passer, but he can pass. There's plenty of talent. But where this team's strength lies is their defense. Their defense is bulletproof. And I think this Georgia backup going into his second game of the season, not even a start. He played against Texas in the second half of the football game. His first actual start as the Georgia quarterback is against Notre Dame in the college football playoff. I think this quarterback for Georgia is going to struggle, mainly in the first half of football, and they might start putting stuff together late. But I do think this Notre Dame team is going to win this football game. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but I think Notre Dame's going to win. This might even be 4 touchdowns at a blocked extra point. If Georgia can do a good job of holding this team to field goals, they might actually have life because Notre Dame's they get their field goals blocked. They have a problem with kicking the ball. That's Georgia. That's where Georgia honestly could take advantage is if they could get this team kicking field goals because they can turn the ball game around. I mean, of course, and just holding them away from points, but I don't think Georgia's going to be able to do that. I think Notre Dame's got some schemes, some game plans, and maybe even some turnovers to help them out. But that's the last game of the college football playoff. I hope you guys enjoyed. A like and subscribe and help a comment. Always helps. That's all for me. Adios.